Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Think Tank. I want to talk about something very important, and this is a reaction to a lot of the vlogs that I've been posting. I've been getting a lot of comments. They're just quite ignorant. And have lack of knowledge of history. They still claim, despite learning from history, from the unfortunate misery that people had to go through from trying a socialist model, which has failed, and they just want to repeat the same mistakes, or they just ignore it. And they're just saying, look, we need to try this. We need to have socialism. We need to have government intervention in the economy. We need higher taxes. We need government giving people free health care. And they just ignore what's happened in history. They see how this has failed in the past, and they just want it back again. They just want to talk about why we need this stuff. And I really want to put this to rest. And I saw a very interesting column. And what I want to do here, what I want to talk about is what makes an economy. Let's talk about economics. Is it the government? Is the government responsible for managing an economy? Or is it the free market? Is it the private sector? So which is it? Is it the private sector or is it the government? And I saw a very interesting column. And this is in the Weekly Standard. And it talks about California. Decline and fall. California votes for more taxes, spending, debt, and government. Now, if this isn't proof that the free market is what makes an economy prosper, and expanding government and taxes is what makes an economy fail, then I don't know what is. I mean, just look at this right here. California, right? It's running a $16 billion budget deficit. The total debt is at least $618 billion, the highest in the nation. And keep in mind, California is the most populous state in the country. And you know, geographic-wise, this is a perfect model to use. And here's the key here. The latter amount includes up to $500 billion in unfunded pension liabilities for 220,000 state employees, plus billions in unpaid bills, delayed payments to schools, and amounts rated from dedicated funds to cover general expenses. So you have all this debt. I mean, basically, why is this happening? You have people who are getting pensions that are too big. The salaries are too high, and this is the result of all this debt. And take a look at this. You see, here's the proof. Once a private sector right here, once a prosperous industrial and high-tech powerhouse and magnet for immigrants from elsewhere in the country, has transformed itself into something else, a high-tax, high-spending, highly regulated, and chronically broke welfare state. Okay? So, these jobs have left. California factories once housed such industries as steel, automobile manufacturing, tire production, and aerospace. Those are now mostly or entirely gone. And what do you have left? Government, right? You have massive unions. Here it talks about the largest, of course. I was thinking about this, which one it could be. It's the teachers' union. Here it is, the most powerful of the unions, and perhaps the most powerful special interest group in the state is the California Teachers Association. 325,000 members paying about $1,000 apiece annually in dues. The CTA, which has thrown its clout, talks about behind a politician. So this is what it's about. You see, when they throw their clout behind the politician returns favors. This is the lobbying problem. And these are public unions. The whole idea of a public union just makes no sense. I mean, you know, what are they fighting for? You know, what are they unionizing? For the taxpayer to pay more money? For people in the private sector who have jobs, to give these people more money out of their pockets. It just makes no sense. The whole idea of a public union is just, it's insane. It just really is. I mean, they're not. It's one thing if you have a union, and workers are fighting for higher pay against the company, which I don't agree with at all. But a public union? I mean, come on. For the taxpayers to pay more money for salaries for public servants? I mean, this is what they're unionizing for people, for taxpayers to pay more money. It just doesn't make sense. And here's my question to you people, you socialists out there, you people that say, hey, We need more government involvement, more taxation, government involvement in healthcare, government involvement in education, right? If government is such a success, if what government does creates jobs, and if government creates prosperity, why is California such a disaster? I mean, California is an absolute disaster. It's a failure. Okay? You have this ballooning government, ballooning pensions, ballooning debt as a result of it. And you have a private sector that's been ravaged. Most of the manufacturing has left the country and they've gone to other states. Why? Because of taxes, because of regulations. That's why they've done it, because government is growing. I mean, a good analogy would be, it's like a toothpaste tube. If you squeeze a toothpaste tube from one side, it's going to deflate, and then the other side is going to inflate, and that's what's happened here. You have the private sector, right? That was one time big, and the government was smaller. And then what happened was the private sector was just squeezed out, and government just ballooned. And the problem is, it ballooned to debt, because with the private sector, that debt wouldn't be there. It's a transfer of wealth. It's created debt, and as a result, the companies are no longer there to fund it, which is why the debt has increased. And I mean, here, take a look. I mean, just look at this. Just 1 year, Stockton, Mammoth Lakes, and San Bernardino filed for bankruptcy. So, see, that's the whole thing. This is absolute proof, and this is current proof. We're not even looking at history right now. This is happening as we speak. This is unfolding as we speak. This is not history. This is current events. Okay? There are more cities that might go broke. And you have the debt, which is increasing. You have government expanding. So my question is, if you think that government should be in charge, should be handing out welfare, should be handing out healthcare, should be handing out free education, free, all this stuff for free, right? Then California, which has so much government, should be an economic powerhouse. But instead, it's a disaster. California's broke. And why is it broke? Because of all this debt, because of all this government. And then if you look at a state like Texas, which some of these jobs have gone to, right over here, it talks about it in this column. During the decade from 2000 through 2010, California lost nearly 1.1 million residents, with Texas alone receiving about 1/4 of them. Why are they going to Texas for? Why? Well, for one thing, Texas has no personal state income tax. People are going to vote with their feet. And that's what's happened. And if you look at the Texas unemployment rate, it's a lot lower than California. And Texas is actually a good comparison because it's also a big state. And that would be a good comparison. So this is what happens. You see, this is what happened, folks. If you have an expanding government, you have taxes that go up with it, regulations that go up with it, you have an expanding government workforce, the middle class shrinks, no one left to fund it. And you also have an increasing amount of people on welfare. It says over here like 1/3. I mean, this is staggering. A full third of Americans on public assistance reside in California, even though it houses only 1/8 of the nation's population. So this is a ballooning welfare state. Massive government. And out of control debt. I mean, this is proof. I keep on saying this. So what are you Keynesians, right? That talk about government intervention in the economy, government involvement. What do you socialists say to this study right here? What do you socialists say to the case in California? I mean, if you want to ignore what happened in the past, such as like what happened in Argentina, right, where you saw that government involvement in the economy, out of control debt, that spending, the Keynesian nonsense that they talk about, deficit spending is good for the economy. What do you say to Argentina? I mean, Argentina was facing an absolute disaster. They went from poverty to, I mean, extreme misery. I mean, hyperinflation, riots. People were going hungry. They couldn't get food. I mean, the country was severely in debt. They had the highest default. They defaulted on the highest default in history at the time. So, this is what happens. They just ignore, and the funny thing is they ignore it. They ignore, they say, you know why there's a problem? Because we need even more spending. It's like saying, analogy, if you have an army that's being routed by the enemy, you have no chance You could barely escape with your life. You have one chance to escape with your life, but instead of doing that, you just keep on fighting, right? You keep on throwing your men at the enemy. I mean, this is the strategy of Keynesianism. Just keep on throwing money, spend more, print more. This is what they talk about. Despite all the proof in the past, in history, that it's the spending that's the problem. That if you do it, it's the cause for disaster. And California is a perfect example of this. And this is this is the proof. The proof is right here. And I'll tell you what brings prosperity. What brings prosperity, again, people just don't look at history. The Industrial Revolution. It was people like Cornelius Vanderbilt, Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford. These people were people that took their own money, their private capital, risked their investment. It could have failed. They took very big risks and they prospered. And they did it without income taxes. It was done without government intervention. And the result was they took people and raised the standard of living of these people unlike it's ever been in history. The result of people came from around the world to come to the United States to work, to raise the standard of living. To raise the standard of living, to get jobs, to make money, to live a dream, to become prosperous. This is the American dream. The American dream is for people to come from one country and raise their standards. And they were able to do it, not through government. They were able to do it through the private sector. That's how it was done. And if Hayek talked about, he said that the result of the Industrial Revolution, what he mentioned is that it's the very reason we're living the way we do today is a result of what happened during that revolution. The innovations that took place. And the development of the innovations that took place as a result of the Industrial Revolution was unparalleled. And it wasn't done because of government. It was done because of the private sector. It was done because of the innovations, the ambition, the ingenuity of individuals, and of individual capital. This is what makes an economy grow. This is what makes an economy prosper. And that is the perspective of the think tank. I would like to know your perspective. Do you think government intervention is what the economy needs? More government intervention? Or should the free market, will a good dose of laissez-faire capitalism be good for this country? Please leave your comments, please subscribe, and thank you for tuning in.